If you've ever gotten all the way to the range and then realized you forgot your combat shirt that completes your LARP, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Welcome back to another Clone or Die. For today's episode, I've decided to go a little bit further east, and we're going to be talking about my FSB Alpha Ak74 build. Get into the base of this gun. What is it? So originally I picked this gun up, built by Imperial Arms. They were a company here in Arizona. They don't exist anymore, unfortunately, but the owner was a great guy. I talked to him a bunch. So this is an original Bulgarian parts kit built on a Nodak Spud receiver. Still has the original barrel, amazingly enough. I built this 2019, so it was before COVID, right before the war. Zenico parts were still cheap, so I got all the Zenico stuff straight from Russia. The only thing I couldn't use from Russia, because this is built on a Bulgarian parts kit, is the stock adapter to run the M4 buffer tube stocks. The Bulgarian and Russian are different spec and side folding, and they're not compatible with each other. One's a 4.5 millimeter and the other one's a 5.5 millimeter. So I had to pick up this JMac that would work for my Bulgarian Ak74 to run the magwell CTR. But other than that, all the Zenico stuff I have is original. Granted, the prices you pay for Zenico now I think is kind of insane compared to what I paid for this stuff at the time. With the Purse 4, even these have gone up quite a bit when they used to be one of the more affordable IR laser options on the market.
Welcome my friends, my comrades. Today we're going over FSB build. I used many times in the anti-terrorist operation in Chechnya, Grozny, Grani. Luckily for us, we're doing small operations. There are no hostages, only terrorists.
So for this build, I was very inspired by around the 2016 era of seeing FSB Alpha running, basically their version of the Block 2 is what I like to refer to it. They've got the full length B30, B33 Zenico handguards, just a giant, huge aluminum piece. They've got the dust cover that allows them to retain the rear sight, although the Texas Weapon Systems dust covers are seen as well, which you lose the rear sight on. Running M4 style stocks, running the AK style stocks, the Zenico ones. Oftentimes I have a RPK 45 rounder ribbed magazine in this. This one is a plum one too, which is pretty cool. You'll often see RPK mags as starter mags. Makes sense. We see 40 round P mags as starter mags a lot for the US military. Two pieces that are not really 2016 specific that I have on this gun, just for my comfort, is I have MFT AK grip. A buddy of mine gave it to me for free. It was more comfortable than the standard AK grip. Of course, you see Zenico ones, you see the standard AK ones, you see the Ishmash ones. There are all kinds of ones that are correct, the Magpul. I also went with the BCM CAG. This is just my favorite hand stop grip combination. I like it on every gun. I like it on this gun too. It's low profile, sits exactly where I need it to be for my two pressure switches, for my laser and for my light. It's just really perfect. From there, I decided to go with EOTech XPS. There's a very, very long period of time where whenever you saw any of the various Spetsnaz units with their AKs, they had EOTechs. Now they use all sorts of optics. I've seen aim points, EOTechs, ACOGs, LCANs. Anything the West has been seen, as well as their own domestic production, red dots and scopes, although those are much shittier than their Western counterparts. There's a reason they use the Western ones. They're just better. I have the Zenico Purse 4 on here, which is just an IR laser. There is no illuminator. And to make up for that, I'm running the Surefire 720 Raid Light. These were originally made for SOCOM, but not many units purchased them. They are a both IR and white light. There's vampire heads, so they're switchable, and I use that as my illuminator. So I have the laser and my illuminator on this. There is, for whatever reason, there is tons and tons of photos of FSB Alpha guys running these Surefire Raid lights. I have no idea why. I have no idea why they bought these, where they got them from, but they have them, they use them, so I got it on my gun. Recently, I decided to give this a fresh coat of paint, but I've shot it a lot. This is the gun I was shooting mainly during COVID, because before the war in Ukraine, 5.45 was dirt cheap. 5.56 became extremely expensive during COVID, so I could shoot this. I'd say I haven't shot it in a while, so I'm a little rusty on some of the AK reloads. in some of the clips, but it's just really a dream. Shooting 5.45 AKs with this brake on it, it's no recoil. This is the recoil deleting gun. This is the laser gun. You just pull the trigger and it fucking doesn't even move. Like, it's so... 5.45 AKs with the brake shoot so smooth. I did consider getting the Bulgarian, the 4-piece flash hider that you do see in some reference photos, but it just shoots so good with the standard AK brake, and the standard AK brake is still correct. I just wanted to keep it like this, and I've used this gun at matches. I've shot, like I said, all through COVID with it, and it's just been a great shooter so far. My inspiration for this, again, like the Russian Block 2, is kind of like a modernized AK74M. I will say with this solid chunk of aluminum on the older Zenico handguards, they are very front heavy compared to the newer ones where they slim down and they have the attachable rails. They're kind of M-block-ish system. The one thing for eagle-eyed viewers that makes this kind of not an AK74M and more just a regular AKS74 is it does not have the side mount, which I'm not using anyway because I've got a Zenico handguard. I could get a side mount put on, but I've never really bothered because I have the Zenico handguard. That's the one piece I need to get put on this side, and then it would be like a proper AK74M, except for the rear trunnion being the Bulgarian spec one. Of course, I don't care enough versus Bulgarian spec rear trunnion versus Russian. I'm not gonna do that. Some people might go that far. I really did not spend that much money on this gun, and it's unfortunate now that if you wanted to build an AK-74 like this, first off, 5.45 is just as expensive as 5.56 now because of the war in Ukraine. It's not dirt cheap anymore. Harder to get because we're not getting those imports from Ukraine and Russia anymore. And it's hard to find a good, really reliable AK-74. This one was built on an original Bulgarian military parts kit, so it's not even like a commercial arsenal, it's a military one. And it's built on a Nodak receiver, which when they still made AK receivers were some of the best. I will note that the magwell on this gun is really tight compared to some of the other AK-74s I've shot in. This is not the first one I've owned, but P-mags and the AK-12 mags fit really, really tight in the magwell on this gun. Usually AK mags have some wiggle, and this, like, it's got fucking nothing. So I think that's just distinctive of the Nodak ones, or maybe this gun specifically. Makes it a little bit harder to reload. Sometimes it gets gunked up a little bit with sand or debris when we're shooting out here, and it can be hard to get that magazine in. That's the one kind of oddity I've noticed with this receiver. But other than that, this gun is just like a champion. The only time I've really had misfeeds with it are with the Magpul P-Mag, AK-74 mags. They just don't work as good as the Bulgarian and the Russian mags. The Bulgarian and the Russian mags, they fit in the magwell better, they're easier to reload, and they just work better. They're more expensive now. You know, you can't get plums for cheap like you used to be able to. I've seen up to $100 a mag or whatever, or if you're going for Ishmash mags, whatever it might be. I mean, this ribbed mag is pretty expensive as it is. So I just wish AK-74s were a little bit more available. Hopefully more domestic production of 5.45 ammo picks up. I was shooting all steel case ammo today, but there is brass case, Hornady production ammo you can get, which I have some of. There's also the old lacquer case ammo. If you can find like the older Wolf or the older Tula ammo, you can find either steel or lacquered case. Or if you're going with spam cam and you don't give a shit about shooting corrosive ammo, you can go at 7N6. There's a ton of that was dumped onto the US market. It's still currently used in the Russian military, regardless of whatever fancy new rounds they have. They had so much 7N6, they still use it currently in the war in Ukraine. And by today's standard, this is a little dated. You know, again, it's more like the 2016 type build and just built off what I had. Like, there's various lasers that are correct. I have the Purse, PEC 15 is also correct. The D-ball I've also seen is correct. The Purse 3 is correct as well. I've got the 4. There's a few different avenues you could go with this, and overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. It's really one of my favorite guns to like run and gun. If I'm not picking up an AR and like I want to pick up a AK, this is my go-to AK if I had to pick one. 5.45 is the superior cartridge for AKs to be chambered in. Because of availability now, maybe 5.56. Maybe I'll concede that a little bit just on ammo prices at the current day and age. If you can find a good 5.56 AK, like a barrel or something like that, yeah, definitely go for it. There are also alternatives to the Zenico that are now available. Since Zenico has increased quite a bit in value, I've seen these handguards for ridiculous compared to what I paid from Russia. There are a couple of US clone companies that make a Zenico handguard, basically clone, which honestly, in my opinion, is made better than the actual Zenico is. The actual Zenico is not exactly to the highest standard. The series of aluminum they're using is like 2000 series aluminum versus like most American products would be 6000 series or 7000 series aluminum, built for what it is. Just, they needed a railed handguard. Ironically, I think a setup like this is probably better than getting an AK-12. Granted, the AK-12's gone through a couple versions. There's the AK-12, the AK-12M, and the AK-12M1. There's probably a reason we've seen a lot of special operations units in the Russian military stay on AK-74s with more Zenico handguards instead of AK-12s. Granted, it always depends on the unit. If they really wanted to save money, I understand the AK-12 is basically made to save Kalashnikov concern as a company because, you know, they need to make guns, they need to make profit because they're not a government-run business anymore. They probably would have been better served just been issuing their own kind of Block 2 upgrade kit where it would have been a Zenico kit or the AK-200 series or the UUK kits that they made. If they just issued those for existing AK-74s, I think that would have went over better for the AK-12 because that gun has its own series of problems. It's certainly lighter than this is, though.
You see, comrade, gun like this, you retake the Donbass 3 days. Special military operation. This is what you need. None of that Western caliber. You don't need Western rifle. This is the rifle for fighter, for men. It's been in Grani, the Syria, the Chechnya. Rifle you want is AK.
Some of you might be wondering as far as trigger. I'm running the good old Tapco AK trigger, which are no longer made anymore, unfortunately. I like them. If I was to do this again, probably ALG. That's just the AK trigger to go with. It feels super smooth. And yeah, for a long time, I did have the AK, the knurled charging handle. Now, I've seen on some AK-74s, it interferes with the bolt and makes them sluggish and not feed correctly. I didn't have that problem, but even if I Loctited it, it just kept falling off, and I just got fucking tired of it. I wasn't gonna permanently attach it. I could have epoxied it on or some shit. And it just fell off one time, and I'm like, all right, fuck it. I'm not gonna run this anymore. I'm just gonna run it without, and it's fine. I can still reload perfectly fine. How I typically reload when I'm doing the FSB Spetsnaz reload. Fancy, looks really cool on camera. Not necessarily Russian doctrine for a lot of units. There's still a lot that are just doing strong hand reload. It doesn't really matter in combat how fast you're reloading. As long as you're able to get ammo in the gun quick enough, doing a sub-second reload really is irrelevant. How I've done it, a lot of people will do this, come up with their hands and reload like this. I didn't really like that method a whole lot, so I started doing just stick my thumb out, come up this side and have my thumb catch it and pull back right there for when I'm doing my reloads. And that's just kind of how I train myself doing it. You know, it looks cool. It's the Travis Haley, the Magpul Dynamics reload. It's quick. Not really any slower than an AR. Yeah, an AK, like conventionally, is harder to reload than an AR is, but you can make up for that with skill if you just dedicate it like to strictly reloads. I think Pulnar Tactical has a video from many years ago where they show that Ziga can reload an AK just as fast as somebody can reload an AR who's proficient. You can just make up for the proficiencies in the system with skill. So I don't even think it's really a detriment that it's a rock and lock reload versus a press the button and the mag falls out and you put a new one in. You can still reload the gun quickly. It's not a problem. Thank you for joining me in today's episode on our trip to the east, covering my FSB Alpha Group of Spetsnaz AK-74. I want to try to cover a little bit more foreign weapons on this. I know we've been a little bit US-centric so far. I can't help it. It's what I like. I like AR-15s. I like M16s. But a few of these things are going to pop up. But for now, I've got a 3-day special military operation, and I'll see you in the next episode.